Hello, and welcome to another Hutchings Consultants podcast. Today we are discussing correctly pricing your pharmacy to sell. This podcast is designed to appeal to pharmacy owners who are thinking about selling their pharmacy business now or any time in the next few years, and will highlight some of the key areas you need to consider as you prepare to bring your pharmacy business to the market for sale. My name is Sam Barlow, and I'm joined today by two of my colleagues, Director Scott Hayton.
Good morning, Sam.
Good morning, Scott. And Senior Pharmacy Consultant Paul Steet.
Hi, Sam.
Hey, Paul. Both Scott and Paul are involved in valuing and selling pharmacies daily throughout the UK and are keen to share their wealth of experience with you. To begin with, can you explain briefly to our listeners how you value a pharmacy business?
Yes, Sam. I mean, in line with banks, most other agents and buyers these days, in the first instance, we undertake what's called an EBITDA valuation of the business. So what we do initially is gather in business information such as FP34s, accounts, VAT returns, staff information. And we use this information to put it through our valuation model. And this will produce what's called an adjusted profit and loss. And as a result of that, we look at the expenses within the business and we come out with what's called an EBITDA, or an adjusted profit figure, which is based on those calculations.
Okay, can I just ask before we move on, what exactly does EBITDA stand for?
Good question, Sam. It's a question we're commonly asked. So basically, it's an acronym for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation and amortization.
Okay, thanks, Paul. So once you've established the EBITDA, what then?
So then we apply a multiplier to that EBITDA, or adjusted profit figure. So the multiplier we use usually is somewhere between 5 and 8 times, but this will depend on the pharmacy business, its location around the UK. So for Scotland, at the moment, we may use a higher figure, just based on the marketplace that we're experiencing in Scotland. But the actual figure will be used on lots of other factors as well. But once this multiplier has been applied, this will calculate the valuation. Based on that figure and our market knowledge and our experience and I guess our price expectations on that particular business, we will then feed that back to our client and make a recommendation as to a marketing price for the pharmacy or pharmacies.
Okay, so that's EBITDA. Is that everything you consider?
It's not actually, no, Sam, and this is the complicated nature of pharmacy valuations. There's, as Paul mentioned, there's a lot of other factors that will come into the mix. Things like the makeup of trade, the degree of OTC versus the NHS income, what proportion of care home income is within the business. And Paul touched on, whether it's England, Scotland, Wales, those kinds of things, but also the finer detail of the location. So what are the quality and the quantity of the buyers in that particular area? And this is really just a few examples.
Okay.
We also rationalise the values using both our experience and previous sales that we've conducted. And we'll normally also look at a pence in the pound assessment as well before we merge all of these considerations together and make our recommendation to the client. So all of that really means that your 5 to 8 times multiplier can end up looking very, very different.
Okay, so that EBITDA multiplier is more of a starting block for you rather than
exactly.
an end point.
Exactly.
Okay, so then taking into consideration everything above, do you then insist sellers take your advice on marketing price?
No, we don't. So we're not that regimented. It's as we've said, principally a recommendation to the client based on our experience, but there can certainly be some discussion and flexibility on where we start things off.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to add in terms of when we're discussing values with our clients, occasionally a client may sort of feed back to us, we'll make a recommendation on price, but certainly, obviously clients, they have their thoughts and opinions and feedback to respond to us with. I have had occasionally a client may sort of, we're discussing value, sort of mention perhaps a friend or colleague who sold perhaps a similar turnover size business to their own. But the actual valuation can be very different. And again, going back to where we sort of touched on previously, other sort of factors that affect valuation, exactly the same. So you can have, say, two businesses that are, they may even actually be very close together, may have very similar turnover figures, but they can have within their business some quite varying sort of degrees of costs. So again, going back to our valuation method, that ultimate price can be sort of really affected. So, for example, they may have very high rental costs or very high staff costs. There's lots of other things to sort of consider, but that will sort of drop down into that bottom line profitability. And it's that bottom line profitability is what we're assessing in terms of the valuation when we go to market.
So there's a lot of factors, basically, and an experienced agent will take all of that into account.
I think it's definitely highly desirable to get that pricing correct in the first instance. But I mean, certainly there are occasions where through discussion with our client, we may feel, well, actually, look, perhaps we can test the market at a higher price. In that situation, what we would normally recommend is perhaps do that testing of the price is done, not exposing the business to the open to the market as such, but maybe with a few selected buyers. So we may approach those buyers again off market. They're targeted buyers who we feel could be a very attractive potential buyer for the business, and we'll put the business proposition towards them and get their feedback. Hopefully it'll be a positive one and they'll have an interest which they want to develop. Again, if the feedback is, on the price is too high, then we can take that on board. We can discuss that with the client before we decide what's the best strategy, when we do go live with the marketing.
Okay, so what you're looking for there is ways in which you can, increase a pharmacy owner's return from their sale, and also conversely, you're looking for areas where you don't want to overprice someone's pharmacy when you take it to market and scare off potential buyers.
Yeah, I think the key thing is here we're looking to secure the best price and terms for our client at the end of the day. That's what our objective is. But we're trying to, we're taking a considered approach to that, and using our experience and market knowledge. That's what the client is paying us for. So that's what we're. It's
all about the strategy at the end of the day, isn't it? And getting that strategy right, I think, is so important.
And I guess the ultimate goal then is getting the most value, but the ultimate goal is making sure the pharmacy sells.
Absolutely, that's what the clients expect of us.
Yeah,
that's what we're here to do.
Okay, so I think we've started to touch on this, but could you then explain why it's so important to correctly price the business?
Yes, of course, Sam. There are quite a number of really good reasons why it's so important to get that price right at the start of the marketing, which we'll obviously run through. But I think, first of all, as a seller, you really do want to create a good early momentum with the marketing when you first go to the market. So it's all about sort of creating positivity around the sale and having sort of confidence in the marketplace. So part of that is actually getting that early interest from attracting that early interest from buyers. Also, leaving a pharmacy on the market longer doesn't necessarily increase the chances of securing a higher sale price. So again, speaking to some clients, we take into account their sort of timescales that they're looking to achieve. But I think it's sort of key to have that at the back of one's mind that you shouldn't leave a pharmacy or business on the market what can be perceived for too long, because that can certainly
people are going to be wondering why it hasn't sold.
Yes, yeah.
What's wrong with the business? Why hasn't anyone else taken it on? So there's also a greater chance of adverse changes occurring within the marketplace or within the business itself that could affect the sale and price. And these could be things like surgery or competition moves, or changes in the nature of the market, such as funding cuts, changes in bank lending policies, or changes in the supply and demand. If you've got suddenly an influx of pharmacies coming onto the market, then as a seller, you've got more competition.
Yeah, I think that's key. Particularly, as you mentioned, Scott, with sort of funding cuts, you never know sort of quite when some announcement will sort of come out which can, impact the market. So, absolutely. The longer that you're on the market for, the greater the chance of something like one of those things happening that we've sort of mentioned.
And I guess working day in, day out with pharmacy sales, you guys have both seen your fair share of that.
Oh, definitely, absolutely.
Sure, yeah.
So, no. I mean, I've had personally sort of sales that I've sort of been involved in where there's been, a weather event, for example, which has, caused an issue with a sale, and there's so many things, unfortunately, that can happen. So, yes, it's better to get on with it.
The big one at the moment, of course, is potential changes to tax legislation.
True.
Mm-hmm. So, we're wondering what's going to happen. Is there going to be change? At the moment, sellers are benefiting from the business asset disposal relief, potential 10% on the capital gains tax. So are there going to be changes to that? There have been some modifications to it, some minor changes to the lifetime allowance. But if the reliefs are scrapped or brought in line with income rates, that would have a significant impact on what sellers are walking away from the sale with. I think, as a seller, it's really important that you try and retain an objective view of the business and its pricing, and also try to be wary of an overzealous approach seen by some agents who are perhaps looking to win your business and the instruction. It does actually happen quite a lot, and we hear the feedback from owners that have been misled. Of course, it's going to be flattering to hear a higher number and a higher valuation for your business, but if you're overreaching on the price, it's not likely to be a good result for you in the long run, actually. So as owners are approaching this situation and thinking about selling their business, it's really important to try and retain that objectivity when you're assessing your options. And trust plays a very big part in all of this.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I mean, I've had sales where precisely that's happened. A client's been advised to go on at a high marketing price, and it's just not gained any traction in the marketplace. It's been on the market for, it's inevitable, it's been on the market for a very long time. And the seller gets frustrated, they get disappointed, and they just want to get on with their plans, and for the whole reason why they were going to the market in the first place. So
we've actually seen it on a number of occasions where that happens. You take it off the market, reduce the price, bring it back to the market, and you actually end up higher than the original price because you've generated that interest.
Yeah.
People have been to see the business, they're very, very interested in it, and you end up in a situation where you've got competitive bidding.
That's it. That's the key, isn't it? Creating that competition between buyers.
Yeah, so important. And another benefit, of course, is that it gives you a better footing for negotiating other aspects and terms of the offer. Things like getting a higher deposit from that buyer, which is very important.
Absolutely. I mean, I always say to my clients, what I try to I put them in the position of ideally is having a choice of buyers, so they can, because again, it's not, for some clients, it's not always just about price. There's other factors that sort of come into their decision. So, when they choose to sell, quite often, from experience with other clients, it's about, who they feel will be the best fit for the business and for their staff, etc. So it's not entirely all about sort of price ultimately, but obviously it's a very big sort of factor. But as you sort of say, if the risk is if you're just in the position of having to negotiate with one party alone, then some of those terms may not be agreeable to you. You're in a less sort of strong position. If you do have more bids from other parties, you've got also backup as well. So if you agree a sale, if for any reason it doesn't proceed, then you've got, if need be, you can go back to those other parties and explore options with them as well.
So I mean, you've got a backup there. You're giving yourself more options and really more leverage during negotiation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And generally, things are going to move a lot quicker. You can develop that interest very quickly. Push those viewings, push the offers. You're moving through things at pace if you've got that price right. So ultimately it means that sellers can achieve their objectives sooner, get on with their plans. If it's retirement or other business plans that they've got, they can get into that sooner rather than later, and your risks are reduced, I think, actually, because it is the longer it's on the market, the riskier it is. If you've only got one party that's interested because you have overreached on price, then again you're in a riskier position.
I think, going back to what I sort of said earlier on, it's all about, as I say, creating that momentum at the start of the sale, right the way through.
Just about to say, Paul, what I'm really picking up on here is that momentum is key.
Really, really is. And again, as Scott says, you start that at the outset, and you'll see that go right the way through the sale and get you to where you want to be more quickly.
And all of this really creates a positive atmosphere around the sale.
Absolutely. Experience shows us that you're more likely to have increased buyer interest, more viewings. As a result, more buyers and better offers and terms. Would you agree, Scott?
Yeah, 100%. And we do see it, and very likely you're going to find that the whole experience less stressful as well, I think, as a seller.
I think it's important not to underestimate. You mentioned about stress that can be generated during a sale. Ultimately, as a seller, your focus is going to be on running the business, keeping the business on track and attractive to buyers, and that goes right from the start of the marketing, right the way through the sale, right ready through to when you can hand over the keys on the day of completion.
Yeah, okay.
It's very important, and a lot of the clients that come to us, one of the principal reasons that they're selling is because they've lost interest, they've lost that energy and that drive, and the longer your sale goes on, the more difficult it's going to be for them.
Okay, well that brings us to the end. Thank you, Scott, Paul.
No problem at all.
You're welcome, sir.
So we have now come to the end of this podcast, covering the options for sellers when it comes to marketing your business for sale. There may be listeners who have questions as a result of the points that have been highlighted, and if this applies to you, please do not hesitate to contact either Paul or Scott, who will be pleased to help you with your inquiry. Hutchings Consultants, together with our sister company, Hutchings Accountants, offer a range of services including free verbal valuations, free tax reviews, and are able to work with sellers pre-sale to ensure that our clients optimise the sale price they can achieve. We have also launched an exciting new Help to Sell scheme designed to reduce the potential risk for sellers. If you would like to discuss any of these points further, again, please do not hesitate to contact us. Our contact details can be found on our website, hutchingsconsultants.com. I'll also put our details just below in the comments section, in the description of this podcast, so you should be able to find them wherever you look. Thank you for listening. We hope you found it useful, and we look forward to speaking to you again soon.